now tuned in to the cold, hard truth. Cayman's #1 hard-hitting live podcast show, where we feature some straightforward conversations on political, social, and celebrity news and all things happening in the Cayman Islands and around the world. This show was created to give the people a voice and a means of being involved and informed without any filters. Sometimes it gets crazy, but we always keep it real. We bring you the tea, piping hot, so grab your favorite beverage and join the conversation via WhatsApp at 324-1612. Email tips@caymanmarlroad.com. Now, here's your host, Sandy Hill, broadcasting live from the beautiful Cayman Islands.
Delivering these days can be frustrating. You can either wait forever or pay insane prices to get it faster. Even then, you still have no idea when it'll reach its destination. That's where Miracle Brokers comes in. We are flexible, reliable, and most importantly, fast. Whether you need household relocation, delivery services, full custom brokerage, overseas consolidation, commercial moving, packing materials, overseas consolidation, or inter-island moving, we offer exceptional logistics services all around the world that suits your individual needs. Just choose when, where, and what your delivery will be. You can even get it delivered same day. What's more, we'll choose the best courier for you based on your delivery requirements. This means less waiting and less hassle for you. Because we don't just say we care, this and much more make us a great option for you. Discover our shipping solutions and more at miraclebrokers.com today.
Got to turn on the mic. Give me one quick second while I mic up. And good evening to all of you. How are you guys doing? I always run my mic under, although I don't think you guys can see very much of my shirt with this particular camera setup, but still, we like to do it the proper way. Hi, Keisha. Thank you for tuning in. Mitzi, how are you doing, honey? And Joy, of course, has joined in with lots more. Elizabeth Moya. I love how Elizabeth always does her greetings in Spanish. By the way, let me turn on the light there. Much better, right? Buenas noches, Elizabeth. ¿Cómo estás? Estoy bien, gracias. Let me see who else is here for the show this evening. Evelyn, thank you to the beautiful Evelyn. She is here for it. I don't know what that little icon is, Evelyn. I can't quite make that out. So do tell me what that is. It looks very tiny on my screen. So we've got a couple of things I want to cover tonight. It's been a super interesting day in terms of the coronavirus, folks. It is still wreaking havoc all over the world. And in the United States, they reported 1,400 and I believe 90 deaths, almost 1,500 deaths on Wednesday. So that was yesterday, and that's the highest single death number yet in August. So this is not looking good. That makes it the deadliest day for the virus since May. Not good at all. Thank God we're not opening our borders in 2 weeks, because I dare say that we would be in a lot of trouble. So what's going on? Early summer surge, patients dying a few weeks after being infected. So, you know, the numbers a couple weeks ago in July were really, really spiking, and people don't get it today and die today. They go through a process of trying to recover from this virus, and then they normally will, you know, succumb to it in the matter of a couple weeks. So far, the US has over 166,000 deaths attributed to the virus, way more than any country. And that they're calling a really stark statistic, But they still say that that does not really tell all of the numbers. So according to a Times analysis, the total number of US residents who've died since March is now more than 200,000, higher than it would be in a normal year. And the excess deaths, they're saying, may be a substantial undercount, failing to count people who died from COVID, as well as who may have secondary causes that are also linked to the pandemic. So, they might be listing them as diabetic deaths or whatever, but really it's because of the combination of the diabetes and the COVID-19. And now they're actually saying that the 1918 influenza pandemic, which was considered the deadliest in modern history, and it claimed an estimated 50 million lives worldwide, that COVID-19 is on par with that because of, if you look at it in terms of how long that was around. So, it's not looking good. Yeah, they're saying that the death toll at the height of the COVID surge in New York City was nearly as bad as the 1918 influenza pandemic. So not good. New Zealand, again, has an outbreak of some 17 cases, which we mentioned this morning, in Auckland. This is after they went 102 days without a single local transmission. Well, now they're wondering how this cluster is possible. And of course, they have locked back down the city. One of the areas, as we mentioned, that they're looking at is a warehouse that stores imported seafood, because one of the people had it there. But it seems like human-to-human transmission is the more likely result. So they're trying to look at quarantining any quarantine facilities for returning travelers to see if there might be a connection there. So I think there was some outbreak or something in Melbourne, Australia as well, that they're looking keenly at to see if there's a connection between that and New Zealand. So similar to what happened in Vietnam. I mean, this is history repeating itself, because again, last month in Vietnam, they heralded that the virus was gone, just like we are doing right now. And after 99 days of no local transmission, the virus arrived in the port city of Da Nang, which quickly sealed itself off and went back into lockdown. And weeks later, here we are weeks later, and epidemiologists still don't know what happened. So there's so many unknown factors, I think, about this disease that's leaving people baffled. Resurgences: China now has over 47,000 coronavirus-related deaths, surpassing Britain for the fourth most in the world. Germany reported over 1,400 new cases today, a level not seen since the country tampered down the virus in May. And there has been the first virus case has been reported in one of Greece's migrant camps in the Aegean Islands, which are more overcrowded than those on the mainland. So now that's causing concern. So that's a brief synopsis of what's happening in the world of COVID-19. The other interesting thing is I was watching some news earlier today, and they were doing there was a survey that was being done that said 25% of Americans, and it was the younger between like 18 and 25, 24, have actually considered suicide in the last 30 days. And this is sort of the mental health issues that are now coming out of the coronavirus. It is scary, folks. It really is scary. So let me see who else is tuned in. Good evening, Larry. Hi, Ruth. Good evening, Karen. Alice is here. We've got Cecile from the UK. Thank you, Cecile. Irvlin says it's the evening sunset behind the high-rise buildings in Las Vegas. Oh, okay. Couldn't make that out, but thank you very much. Perla, thank you so much. Yeah, so Larry points out that New York went from the most to the least. And of course, now that schools are reopening, this is an area of real concern, because I'm going to share some information here with you guys in terms of that. So let me just see here. Hi, Vanessa. I'm good. Thank you, Miss Nancy, for tuning in. Beautiful Miss Nancy always looks lovely. And Ja, is that how you pronounce your name? Jay? Thank you for tuning in as well. So let's look at some of the information that we have here that I think you'll find particularly interesting. So they've got 14 confirmed cases. This is schools now that are looking at reopening or have already reopened in the US because, you know, a lot of their schools started back. And this is basically what's going on. So in one school alone, they had 14 confirmed cases. Now they've got nearly 1,200 students and staff that have been quarantined. That's in Georgia, Atlanta. So that's kind of scary. Additional information in New Jersey, in Elizabeth, New Jersey, 400 teachers. Listen to this. The teachers were saying, we don't want to teach our kids. We want to stay home. We don't want any part of this. So 400 teachers have applied for medical exemptions, basically saying that, you know, because of underlying health issues, they are high risk and they are refusing to teach your kids in person. Anyway, so it's a difficult situation. You know, the teachers don't want to be there. I guess some of the kids don't want to be there. The kids are not really social distancing. A lot of kids are saying they want to be able to enjoy their senior year. And, you know, senior year in the US is like a big deal because you get to do all of the fun stuff like prom and homecoming king and queen and, you know, all these fun things. You do like a lot of, I went to school in the States, so, you know, you do like a senior trip with all of your senior classmates. You prepare for graduation, so you're sitting exams. Everybody's applying for university, and there's a lot of excitement in the air about where you're going, what you're going to be doing in your, you know, turning into adulthood life and that sort of thing. But during a time like this, it can be so incredibly scary. Like the uncertainty, I think, of what's happening really adds a very different dynamic to the situation. And in fact, hi, Corey. Thank you. Corey is telling Cecile to go to bed because it's quite late in the UK. Cecile, what time is it there? Maureen, thank you for letting me know you missed a couple mornings. Remember, you can always go back to Facebook or go to the website and just look for the category on the left called The Cold Hard Truth. And we've been putting the daily shows there so that you can always go back and view them at your leisure as well. So it just links back to the actual Facebook link. You know, when I was in high school, there was in Florida a serial killer on the loose when this was 1991, when I was in my senior year. And he was in the Gainesville area. And it was actually quite scary because a lot of my high school mates were planning on going to the University of, I think it's UF that's in Gainesville. I always get them confused because the big three in Florida is UF, University of Florida, FSU, and USF. So I was going to USF, which is where right there in Tampa. And I think University of Florida is UF is the Gainesville one. FSU is Tallahassee. So a lot of, you know, we were all in Tampa. So a lot of us were staying in state for, you know, a lot of people stayed in state just to save money and tuition. And Florida has some good universities and stuff as well. Big rivalry between like FSU and UF with their football programs. At the time, USF didn't have a football program, but they eventually acquired one. And so, yes, we were all ready to go. And I remember sitting in some of my classes, like history and English class and whatever. And there was this whole manhunt on because this guy was targeting people in the university area. I can't even remember his name. I'd have to really look this one up. But it was a really terrible and scary time. Like I just looked it up. And I just Googled 1991 Gainesville murders because it was that popular, right? And it came up, Gainesville student murders 25 years later. Wow, has it been that long that I've been out of high school? Oh my God. I'm totally starting to feel old now. So yes, this was talking about, his name was Danny Rolling, and I think they executed him in 2006, looks like. But he was responsible for killing 8 people, and most of those were around the university um, at the time. So they didn't know if they had like a university student on the loose who was killing people, but he actually killed 5 college students. And it says in this article that that shattered the tranquility of the college town. So, University of Florida, FSU, they're known for being, even USF, they're known for being university towns. Like the university is so large, like you have a university with 30,000 kids. And so it's like the city and the town that is built around the university is really built, businesses start up to cater to universities, whether it's restaurants or bars, or, there's a cluster of almost like a little economic microcosm that exists because of the school and because of all of the, they need apartments, they need housing, they need all sorts of things. I mean, as university students, we're always looking for food, cheap food, and jobs. University students are able to get jobs off campus, and you kind of stay within a certain mile radius of campus, because sometimes you may not have your own car, or you might be sharing a car or something like that. But yeah, this guy went on a killing spree, and it had everyone scared, because it was like right before school was going to be starting, kind of thing. And so there were people who didn't know, like parents were like, should I send my kid? Who's doing the killing? What's the situation? It was just really, really crazy at the time. So he killed 5 students. And I think he was responsible in the end for 8 murders. And there's some information here kind of about, how he did that and what was going on. But I think they ended up finding him living like in the bushes or something really weird. Like he was living in the wooded area close to that university. So classes were canceled because of it. It was just like, unbelievable at the time that this was happening. Everybody was buying guns, gun sales went up. People were legit afraid. So I'm just kind of reflecting on how a situation like this could lead to, a collective fear within towns and schools and that sort of thing. It's a fearful time around the world. And I think here in Cayman, we have been by and large cushioned from having to deal with certain aspects of this, like the death toll, like the, having no room in your ICU, all the incubation units being occupied by people who are literally dying from COVID-19. And so because of that, I kind of feel like we don't always get the reality check of what's really happening in the world. And if you're not watching, international TV or TV out of the US, you kind of don't get a real sense for how devastating this is. So over 166,000, they're saying it could be up to over 300,000 by December the 1st. And so right now the world is just a super crazy place. So Anne-Marie, thank you so much for tuning in. Ms. Perla is here. She said, in a way, she isn't blaming the teachers at all. Since everything is done online, why not stay home and be safe? And I think a lot of people are feeling that way. Although experts say that kids need the normalcy of returning to an environment where they can have the classroom, the traditional classroom structure that they've all become accustomed to. And I think the younger you are, the more difficult it is to do effective online learning. And in fact, special needs children are the ones who will suffer the most during this pandemic, because they need that expert hands-on attention. So if you have a child who's autistic, for example, and they've been getting instructions from specialists on different things. As a parent, you're not equipped to do that. You try to be the best parent you can, obviously, and you try to do what you can do. But if you're not a trained professional, there's no way for an autistic child to be able to have that translate on a computer screen or have that learning experience in the same way. So again, it's, you know, a very complicated and sad situation. And it's always those who are in most need that will end up suffering the most, which is very, very unfortunate. So Jay says here in Texas, kids want to go back to school. And I think by and large, a lot of kids want to be around their friends, but the risk associated with it and knowing that kids are not as likely to take the necessary precautions is even more scary. Now, the other thing that they're discussing there in the US is the fact that now they know with certainty that the virus can travel up to 16 feet indoors. So this has been confirmed by research coming out of the University of Florida. It's funny enough, we were just talking about them, where they talk about the fact that those small particles, which we have discussed in the past, can move so quickly and they can travel really long distances in confined spaces. And that is why time and time again, you know, we talk about the importance of wearing that mask and how that mask will help you with the cutting down on the transmission. It will stop you from spreading it if you have something, and it would also potentially, you know, protect you from others as well. So that's 6 feet. I've been saying this from day one. That 6 feet that we keep hearing about, that is the minimum recommendation, folks, the minimum. And the sad part about that is most businesses in Cayman do not have 6 feet, more than 6 feet to spare because of how we're designed. So good evening to Sandra Whitaker. Hi, Linda. Sandra Cole is also joined in, and Janet Watler is joined in on my personal page as well. So thank you guys for joining the stream over there. As you know, I've been kind of simulcasting between YouTube, my personal Facebook page, and this. So thank you guys so much. Sorry for tuning in to those various platforms. So yeah, this 16 feet, that's a lot, right? That's, wow, that's a lot. So 6 feet, it's almost triple that as a real safe distance in terms of how far this virus can and does travel. So it's pretty scary. And that's, you know, they're talking about the transmission dynamics, how this makes it far worse than they ever thought possible. And of course, we'll know that Russia claims that they have a vaccine. Now, you know, we're not believing the Russians, but we believe they have something, but it's gone through no clinical trials. We know that. Vladimir Putin is claiming that his own daughter was vaccinated, and other than a high temperature, she's fine. So he says, no one knows if that's true. I mean, that could just be a lie, a convenient lie for him to try to be like, well, I wouldn't infect my own daughter with this. Well, first of all, we don't really know that. And secondly, no one knows if she has actually gotten vaccinated. So who are we going to believe here? But anyway, what could end up happening, and this is a very likely possibility, is that all over the world, you could have people trying to have multiple vaccines available. And how is that going to work exactly? You know, there's no singular vaccine. So we'll have to wait and see what the prognosis is there. But the Filipino government, no surprise here, has decided that they're actually going to back the Russian government because, in part, the Philippines has the highest outbreak in Asia, in the Asian world. And also the Russians have said to the Philippines that they will give them the virus for free. Now imagine this. This Russian vaccine has gone through no clinical studies and has only been tested on 76 people, hardly any significant number. And so that's amazing that Russia is trying to toot the fact, toot their own horns to say that they have a vaccine. And those 72 people, the vast majority of those were military personnel who had no choice in taking the vaccine. Tisk, tisk, tisk. Perla says she understands that kids want to go back to school, but the 6 feet distancing from friends and their teachers is hard to do. I am in agreement with you. And now we know that it's more than 6 feet. Carlos is here. I'm not sure quite what Carlos is talking about. Something about a governor standing up for your rights, freedom of speech. Well, we now know that there are limitations to everything, including freedom of speech, folks. So, yes, Perla, it can travel that far indoors. And Karen is just logging in. Thank you so much, Karen. So just a reminder that Tuesdays and Thursdays is our evening show. Soon we'll be handing over the gauntlet to our youth program. I'm not sure if we're going to do Tuesdays or Thursdays for the youth program yet, but I'll let you guys know. And the young people will be leading the charge on having discussions that are important and pertinent to them. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that. We will be launching that here shortly. So those are some of the topics. Of course, the big topic in the Cayman Islands. So let's switch gears, bring it back home, folks, because you know there's always something going on here in the Cayman Islands. So now the big topic is the opposition has just this evening issued a letter indicating that they want to know basically how the governor got or how he's using the reserve powers under the Constitution. So in case you've been living in a bubble and you have no idea what we're talking about, the FCO, which is the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, via the governor, has said that they will be enforcing this domestic partnership law, and they will be putting the law in place. And I've just put the link there. So the opposition, the official opposition, who all voted against it, have now issued a statement saying that basically they need to know where the governor got his powers from. Okay. I don't know, but this is what they're saying. So they have said that members of the opposition are calling on the governor of the Cayman Islands to provide the legal mandate for his recent constitutional involvement in the domestic partnership bill. And they say that this comes after the FCO was quite clear in 2009 that where it stated that as policy on marriage, et cetera, that basically they were going to leave to the domestic territories. I think the opposition is missing the point, though. And I'll tell you why I say that. First of all, two major distinctions here. What the governor is doing has nothing to do with the marriage law. This is not policy on marriage law. And that is what is in the quote that they have here from the FCO. The FCO says, as policy on marriage law is an area of devolved responsibility, it should be the territories to decide and legislate on. As has been demonstrated by recent LGBT cases, the territories' justice mechanisms and processes should be allowed the space to address these matters. So the opposition is now saying that that statement is in support of their position that the governor is overreaching and he's overstepping. Two critical things here. This isn't about the marriage law, first of all. And secondly, the process, this justice mechanisms and processes has taken its course, right? And two separate courts, the Grand Court and effectively the Court of Appeal, have said that the Cayman Islands government is in contravention of its Bill of Rights, and it must, well, the first court was going to change it themselves. The second court said, no. We're not here to do that, but we can still tell you that you need to fix it. And so two courts have effectively said you are in contravention of your Bill of Rights, and you need to pass something that is the equivalent of marriage, giving the LGBTQ community similar or equal rights or something to that effect, right? So equivalency is the domestic partnership law. That is not the same as a policy on the marriage law. So I think the opposition is really kind of picking at straws here, and very thin straws at that, with this statement, and trying to claim that the governor and the FCO is overstepping. I think they have every legal remit to do it. And not only do they have every legal remit to do it, but it was quite clear that it would be done in the event that the government here was not able to pass the bill. Leader of the opposition, Mr. Ard McLean, says in this statement, and I quote, "It is quite clear that the Caymanian people have been misled by the governor with the full support of the premier. In the absence of the requested release of the Foreign and Commonwealth Office instructions to the governor, it cannot be assumed at this point that this action has been initiated by the governor with the full support. It can only be assumed, that this action has been initiated by the governor with the full support of the premier." I'm not really sure about that. I don't know if the premier has given his full support or not. What I do know is that the premier made it very, very clear in his contribution to the debate on this that this was coming down the pipeline. People chose not to believe him and said the premier, Alden McLaughlin, was playing politics. So it turns out they were wrong. And now they are trying to argue that perhaps the premier was essentially in cahoots with the UK or with the governor to really make this happen this way. Okay. Well, I don't know what to say. I mean, if someone tells you this is what's going to happen and you choose not to believe them and you act accordingly, should you then not just live with the consequences of your actions? I mean, that's kind of how I see it, right? They go on to say that the governor's decision to use Section 81 of the Constitution to pass into law a version of the Domestic Partnership Bill by using his reserve powers, I guess, are ultra virus, or steps outside of what they claim his powers are. So they're saying that his powers relate to civil service, internal security, and external affairs, and nothing further. And that now the governor is delving into domestic affairs, and that they made a comparison between us and the people of Hong Kong by the Chinese government, which has been met with international condemnation and offers of citizenship from both the UK and Australian government to Hong Kong citizens. Well, no one is saying that they may not like what the Chinese are doing, but I don't believe that anyone is actually saying that the Chinese have no power to do that. The Chinese has the power. It may not be nice. It may not be in standing with, equality and human rights, which is quite interesting because at the face of this is also a human rights issue, is it not? And it being a human rights issue, to compare what is happening here to what is happening in China, when people are saying that it's the opposition who is wanting to deny people their rights, it's kind of interesting. It's a very interesting flip of situations. So there you have it. That's where that hot mess of a situation is at this particular time. Yeah. Yep. All right. So let's move on to something else. So that is where we are in terms of that storyline. Let me get to some of your comments. Okay, Carlos, we're going to block you. Good night. We don't have time for the foolishness. All right, folks. Carlos has been blocked. Okay, anybody else with any thoughts on that in terms of what the opposition is saying? Let me just see. Okay, so the political arena here in the Cayman Islands is sure to be interesting leading into the next election. We have two candidates that have officially made their declarations. Thus far, we have Alric Lindsay and Michael Miles. Michael hasn't said where he's running, but we know he's planning on running in Prospect unless something, I guess, changes. And most other people are silent. And, we will sort of see what flushes out. But gosh, there's some super interesting names that are coming to my attention who intend to run for political office. And so let's finish off the conversation this evening. I think this is kind of an interesting political conversation to have. Do you think that there's any one candidate that is 100% that there is somebody just sent a very vulgar image, a cartoon that they must think that we're going to share. That is absolutely disgusting. We will not be sharing that, and I'm not sure why they sent it to me. Yes, Alma, we are very much aware. So yes, do you guys think that there's any single candidate that is safe in their seat? So this is a little poll question that we're going to do, right? Is there any single candidate that is safe in their seat regardless of who runs against them? So this is a good question about how strong people are. So the incumbents are the ones who right now have their respective seats, obviously. Is there any incumbent, anyone who's sitting there now who you think is too strong to be removed by anybody? Let's go through the list. Let's start with Georgetown. So let me now think. I got to pull up the list of elected officials because I know I'm going to forget some of them. So let's start with Georgetown Central. We have Kenneth Bryan. So here's the poll question. I'm going to give you guys a minute to respond to each of these. Get in the comment section. Perla says, when will you invite someone from the LA to assure us all that they have Cayman's future on their agenda? Because only Kenneth Bryan is trying hard, but he can't work alone. Well, there's an open invitation, Perla. Any of them can come on the program if they so wish. But I don't think that they want to. They don't really care, a lot of them, what the people think until they're trying to buy your vote. So you should remember that. So since you're speaking of Kenneth Bryan, let's start with Kenneth Bryan. I think the general consensus is that Kenneth is pretty strong. But do you think anyone could run against Kenneth that could unseat or remove Kenneth? So the next minute, let's put a timer on the clock. I got my little podcast clock up here. Yes or no? Can anyone remove Kenneth from office? Obviously, this is a very unofficial poll. If people would be listening to Ezra's knowledge of the Constitution, Anne, Ezra said this was coming, and he knew that this was coming. And Ezra is in full support of a domestic partnership bill. And he has said long before this even got to this stage that that was the easiest way to fix this, and the government should have fixed it a long time ago. That has been Ezra's position from day one. He has supported, even before the court said to fix it, a domestic partnership bill. So, Sony, thank you for joining in. So let's vote. Kenneth Bryan, yes or no? Can anybody remove Kenneth Bryan? Like anyone that you can think of. And this is just a very theoretical question. Do you think anyone can touch him? Perla says no. He's untouchable. Of course, we know no one is untouchable, but your point is Kenneth is very, very strong in Georgetown Central. Anyone, like say Markle Archer decides to run against Kenneth again. Will Markle Archer remove Kenneth? Can he remove him? Who else could potentially run against Kenneth? I'm just trying to think. Here's a good one. If, what's his name? Kurt Tibbetts. Say Kurt Tibbetts came out of retirement. He's been retired from politics, I think, working as a consultant. Do you think if a heavy hitter like Kurt Tibbetts, if Kurt Tibbetts ran against if Kurt Tibbetts ran against Kenneth, do you think Kurt Tibbetts could remove Kenneth? Is there anybody? So Anne says no. Evelyn says no. Morna says no. All right. I'm trying to think now. Okay, very good. I'm just reminding people that we're doing this poll in case others want to jump on to the live stream and participate. I think this is actually quite a fun exercise. So far, the general consensus is no in terms of Kenneth. Anybody else want to vote before we move on to the next person? All right. So far, the no's have it in terms of there's really no one out there that can easily, let's put it that way, move Kenneth from public office. Now let's move on. Who else have we got in Georgetown? We have, let's go to Georgetown South. So in Georgetown South, we have Barbara Connolly. Now, Barbara Connolly is part of the People's Progressive Movement. So she is a PPM member. So maybe this comes down to a couple of things. This might come down to whether or not you think the PPM has been doing an effective job, as well as do you believe that, I'm just trying to look through the list here of all the elected members. Do you believe that the PPM has been doing an effective job? Now, listen, there's been a lot of discord about the PPM with the port and a lot of other things that they have done. And so now the question becomes, we know Alric, for example, is going up against Barbara. Does Alric have a chance against Barbara? Now, keep in mind, you only need to win by one vote. And this is single member constituencies, folks. So at the end of the day, anyone can be removed because it literally could be one vote, one family that says, you know what, we've had it with this person. Let's vote them out. And those 2, 3, 4, 5 votes. I mean, the closest one last time was at 9 votes or something. I mean, Kenneth won by, what do we say, the hair on his chinny chin chin? So he won by a very slim margin, beating out a very popular candidate at the time, which would have been Markle Archer. So what do we think about Barbara? Well, I mean, Barbara is on shaky ground. I got to be honest. She has never spoken out about women's issues ever since she's been in office. She has not, the whole thing with the Speaker of the House, the PPM has held rank. So even if you are a woman and you live in that district, you are, a woman who has been the victim of domestic violence, for example. And now you're sitting there looking at Barbara and going, how did you not speak out when the Speaker of the House admitted in a written apology to actually physically assaulting a woman? And there's only 3 women in the LA, and we never heard a single word from any of those 3 women. Barbara was also involved in the whole, South Sound fiasco, where they wanted to redo, the South Sound, what's the beach called? Smith Cove, Smith Bracketeer, right? So that fiasco ended up not being a popular one, and the people were voting against that. Alma says, I'm rooting for Alric. Too bad I can't give him a vote. So Alma, where do you vote? What area are you in? So couple yeses here that she can be moved. So Anne says yes, she can be moved. Morna says yes, she can be moved. So Alma is saying yes, because although she can't vote for Alric, she is supportive of him. Georgetown South is very interesting because it is split with like South Sound people, which are very different than from the other side of Georgetown South, which also includes a portion of Windsor Park. So anybody else want to weigh in on that one? So can Barbara be moved? So far the yeses have it, that there's a possibility that Alric could very well unseat Barbara. And of course, we don't know who else may be running in any of these districts, right? So this, again, is a very hypothetical exercise. So let's move on now to, and again, a lot of this comes down to how supportive you are of the PBM government. Have they actually been doing a very good job? Let's look at David White. So David White is a consular of tourism, transport, and sports, and he's the member for Georgetown West. So Georgetown West, what do you guys think? Can David be moved? And of course, we know David and his twin are business owners in Georgetown. Perla says yes, there's a possibility. I think she was referring to to Barbara. So what are you referring to, David? So what about David, folks? So again, don't know who's going to be running in Georgetown West, but with the right candidate, do you believe that David has made an impressionable job, done an impressionable job since he's been in office now coming up for 4 years? Has he impressed anyone? What has he done? Have you heard from him? Have you, heard him discuss any topic that you thought, wow, this guy really is someone who should be reelected? I personally haven't, but tell me what you have heard. Do you think that David can be moved? Morna says, I'm running for Cayman Mall Road. So Georgetown West, any takes on Georgetown West? Can he be moved? Yes. Or can he be moved? No. What are your thoughts on Georgetown West? So let's give you guys a couple more seconds to bring in your votes. I see a lot of you are being silent on this. Listen, this is just your opinion. You don't even have to, be a voter in that district. This is just you theoretically discussing how strong you think a particular candidate is or is not. So Perla says for David, no. So you don't think he can be moved. Okay. But yes for Barbara. That's kind of interesting. The two of them share a political office, and they're both PPM members. So that's interesting that you think one can be moved and not the other one. I have to wonder, what has David done more significant than Barbara? Why you feel that he is in a stronger position than her? All right, anybody else for David before we move on? Let us move on to Roy McTaggart. Roy is for Georgetown East, and he's the Minister of Public Finance and Economic Development. What about Mr. Roy, folks? Anybody thinks that Roy can be moved? How strong is Roy? And again, where's he? Georgetown East. Any views on Mr. Roy McTaggart? He's the Minister of Public Finance. Anne says maybe quietly he can. He separated himself from all the shared PR, took himself out of her shadow. I'm not quite sure I get that. He separated himself from all the shared PR. For Barbara, you mean? Took himself out of her shadow. I didn't think that you're saying that David was in Barbara's shadow. I mean, they're both newbies to political office, so I'm not really sure that either one of them would have been, a leader over the other. So I don't know. Who has heard from any candidate aside from the press briefing? Nikita, that is $1 million question. Outside of a few, we really have not heard, and we haven't gotten to any of those yet. We hardly ever hear anything from them. There is like radio silence. They don't go on any of the talk show circuits other than people like Ezard. The opposition does some talking. So they are members of the opposition, yes. But the government, they do a press briefing. We haven't had one in over 4 weeks now. And that's it. Yes, so Perla herself says, I haven't heard much from any of them. And I think that that's true. So, okay, Anne thinks that David was in the shadow of Barbara a little bit. That's an interesting perspective. All right, so anything in Mr. McTaggart? Is he strong in Georgetown West? Final vote tally. How about Minister of Commerce, Planning and Infrastructure, which is Georgetown North, which is the Honorable Joseph Hugh? Can anyone move Joseph Hugh? So here's a hypothetical. say Johan Moxham was running against Joseph Hugh. Johan was very instrumental in the CPR group and really killing dead the port deal. If you had a head-to-head between Johan Moxham, he's also a business owner in this community. If you had a head-to-head between Johan and Joey Hugh, do you believe, yes or no, that Joey Hugh could be moved by someone like a Johan Moxham? So I'm not necessarily saying that Johan is running, but if he was running, and if he was hypothetically running in Georgetown South, do you think someone of his caliber, his exposure, he speaks up quite a bit, and people in the community know Johan, could he move Joseph Hugh? Anne says all candidates' votes should be measured on their public meetings. That number is 0. Well, and in that case, they would all be removed from office because not a single one. And I take that back because Mr. McTaggart just had a public meeting on Tuesday evening while we were having a show that was going on. And I know for a fact that Alric was there. So then the question becomes, if that is the catalyst or the criteria for whether or not they get reelected, then it looks like nobody's getting reelected because no one has been having any of those. So they will have those, of course, as we come into the upcoming, election. It's just amazing to me how there's so many avenues available for the candidates to keep in touch with the people. Now, to be fair to them, some of them have their WhatsApp groups and they have their voters on that group and they communicate directly with them. So Alva Saku does that, for example. Chris Saunders does that. I know Kenneth Bryan has a Georgetown Central group as well. So they are in direct communication with the people in their minds who matter to them, which makes sense. That's their voters. Perla says, Joey, who is a probability not? So probability to be moved or not moved? Alma makes the point that any politician can be removed once you have a strong candidate running against them. And that's what I'm trying to get you guys to think about tonight. What potential strong candidates do we have out there that could run in any given district? Yeah, so that's where my mind is already going. Like, who's going to be coming out? Who's going to be declaring? Who is going to be running in these various districts? So let's keep moving. We have a few more minutes that we can play around with this. Let's skip from Georgetown now to, we'll go to West Bay. So let's have a look at Captain Eugene Ebanks. So Captain Eugene, he's a counselor of environment and housing. We never hear anything from Captain Eugene. He's such a nice person, but he's like the house mouse. You never hear from him. You never even see him. So we know that in the last election, he came within 90 votes, I understand, of actually losing his seat against a fairly unknown outside of West Bay young lady by the name of Catherine Wilkes. And Catherine, to be honest, did not do a whole lot of campaigning. So if Catherine comes back with a vengeance this time, she was 90 votes, that close. 90 votes can just be a couple households. What do you think? Catherine is an intelligent woman. She's gone to law school. She is amply qualified professionally. She's a family woman. I think she's got a couple of kids, maybe 2 or 3 kids. She's married to musician and president of the Music Association, Mr. Mike Wilkes. So is it possible that Catherine could unseat someone like Captain Eugene? Because I think if Catherine runs again, she will definitely be running in that same constituency of West Bay. So Captain Eugene, what do you guys think about that one? Let me have your votes. So I'm going to move on because we only have a few more minutes, but just say yes to Eugene. Yes, he can be moved. No, he can't be moved. Again, we're just having a little bit of fun this evening with some of the upcoming election. So Anne says, of course you do. You hear yes on votes. I'm not quite sure. Yes. Okay. So what about Tara Rivers? So Tara Rivers is also in the District of West Bay. In terms of who's going to be running against Tara, there are a number of names floating around there. She's the Minister of Financial Services and Home Affairs. Some people said that Tara only had one job in the last 4 years, which was to keep us off of the international blacklist, the European blacklist. And obviously that has not been done. We're still blacklisted, by the way, folks. Let's not forget that. COVID has overshadowed a lot of issues. I feel like people have probably forgotten certain things, but we still remain on the blacklist. And I think Tara has come under a lot of criticism for that particular thing. You know, I don't know what to say about that, but those are the facts. She has come under a lot of criticism, and we still are blacklisted. My apologies. So what are the chances of her being moved? Again, don't know who will be running in West Bay South, but some names that have floated around already include talk show hosts, Ruth Anna. Ruth Anna. Oh my gosh, I'm just having a brain fart right now. You guys know who Ruth Anna is. Ruth Anna is, of course, Ruth Anna can't really run against Ruth Anna Young. She can't run against Captain Eugene because that's her uncle. She can't run against McKeeva because everybody's scared to run against McKeeva. Which, speaking of West Bay, can anybody take out Mac? Who can take out the Big Mac? There are people who argue that this could be his weakest term with all that's been going on with him. He's obviously in the middle of a court case right now. We don't know what the outcome of that will be. But could someone unseat McKeeva? I don't know. McKeeva reminds me of John McLean, right? Had been in office for like 27 years. Everyone kind of felt like he could not be removed ever. And then one day, as Alma rightfully said, anyone can be removed. One day, here comes along Arden McLean, and Arden takes him out after like almost 30 years in office. Isn't that amazing? So lots of others. Why don't we continue this in the morning? Have a think about it. We still have Dwayne Seymour to go. We have Juliana O'Connor Connolly, the Honorable Moses Kirkconnell. It's been rumored that he will actually not be running again. I do not know how true that is, but that's the rumor that has been in wide circulation, that he's actually telling people himself that he's not going to be running. We've got Austin Harris. I think prospect is shaping up to be a quite interesting situation. And who else do we have? Arden McLean, Alva Suku. I think Alva Suku is going to have some real competition. We can talk about that in the morning. Anthony Eden. Will Mr. Eden finally be retiring? He said last time he was going to retire, and that has not been done yet. Bernie Bush, Christopher Saunders, and Ezard Miller. And of course, the premier, the Honorable Alden McLaughlin. So let's finish this. I think this is kind of a fun political discussion. Let's continue it in the morning. Have a sleep on it and see what you think. Anne says moving any and all of them will not affect any representative. They will still collect 75% pension plus lifetime benefits. Well, it might not affect them, but it could affect us. Like maybe if we move enough of them, we might get a government that we might feel that is more about the people's business. So, we're not really thinking about, if we remove them, we're going to cut into their pension. That we understand is set. But maybe it's a little bit more than just that. Perla says they just need to have younger minds altogether. No offense, but the older folks need to retire. On that note, Perla, let's leave the conversation right there and let's pick it back up in the morning. We still have a few candidates to go through. So think about it, sleep on it, and come back in the morning and let me have your ideas. We'll continue to go through the list of who you believe could potentially be moved from political office. Or based on the number of responses here, are we saying that everyone is going to stay put and there'll be no changes coming into the next election? I think that would be a really sad indictment on what is happening here in this country. Morna says nobody can move Big Mac. The West Bay people not moving him. All right, well, there you have the verdict on that. And Anne says, absolutely move them, laughing out loud. Olivia says, solid as a rock. I'm supposing Olivia's referring to Big Mac. So again, we don't vote in West Bay. Well, I don't. So I'm not sure. But yeah, I mean, everybody has an assumption, just like they did with John McLean, and no one would ever move him. And lo and behold, one day he got moved. So as the old folks say never. But I can't think, and again, I don't know too much about the overall dynamics of West Bay, but I cannot think of anyone of significance that would be running against Big Mac. I heard Katina Anglin is considering it. Well, we know she can't win against Big Mac. That would be a joke. That would be like taking candy from a kid. So we'll see if he has anyone a bit more viable that's going to be running. All right, folks, tune in tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock in the morning. You guys be safe tonight, and we'll see you at 7:15. Thanks so much.
Thank you for tuning in to another edition of The Cold Hard Truth. Make sure to check Facebook for showtimes and more information and the latest news at CaymanMarlRoad.com. Subscribe to our IG and Facebook pages to get the latest happenings.